Okay, so today is Monday, July 16th, 2018, and as I said, we're making a recording of our public meeting so that we can play it back for people who couldn't be here, might be interested in our subject. And I'd like to welcome people to the Government Affairs Committee meeting. We'll do attendance, I guess, first, which is, I see Barry Johnson is present, and I see Marcia Newman is present, and I see Victoria Shulam is present, and Eric Previn is present, and also present, but not on the committee as far as I know, but of course you're welcome, is Richard Niederberg,
Michael Piscatelli,
and Craig Gradow in the Peanut Gallery. Excellent.
And we have a quorum.
And we do have a quorum, so this is an exciting turn of events. So I guess we'll just jump right into the agenda, which we already have. So I don't think that there are any minutes from the last meeting to approve, because I didn't see any, so I think we can go past that item. I will give a little committee update by me, the chair, very briefly, which is just to say welcome once again, and to say that, I like the idea of a government affairs committee in the neighborhood council, and I think Rita did a great job of bringing lots of issues before the board, and I look forward to doing the same. I think that, I strive to inform, and I'm hoping that in the future there'll be more time to digest things, and also I would like to try to make it easier to digest, because some of these things are so confusing, and whereas I don't want to be personally advocating for one side or the other in this role, I do want people to have good information, and it is a challenge at all levels of our government. They often make it hard to see, difficult to decipher, and therefore hard to know where you stand. So I'm hoping to bring some light on that and make it a little easier, and I look forward to input from anybody who's interested. So with that, we have a short agenda today, but I would like to open it up to any public comments. They could be public comments on the general variety, i.e. things you might want us to talk about under our jurisdiction, or if you want, since that's where we are we could go into the items, but let's see if there's any general public comments. Oh, that's a great disappointment. No, that's fine. We can move forward. So
I have a question.
Oh, okay. We'll accept questions.
In the past, sometimes there's been people monitoring just about every committee and subcommittee of the city council. Is this going to be the case?
What do you mean?
Well, I monitor agendas.
I know you do.
And Eric monitors the goings-on because he's down there a lot.
Yeah, no, I look at the agendas for the city council. That's a great... I see your question now. I understand. So you're saying, are we going to pay closer attention to the various committee meetings at city and county? I would love to. I think that that's a great role for government affairs. I mean, in my wildest fantasies, we would be actually informing people who would want to tune in so that they could be aware of it and not find out, as we often do, after the fact, when it's already done, too late. You can send a letter, oh, don't worry, we'll consider your letter. I like to know up front, and then sometimes you can make an impact, whether it's in support of something that's very important or, obviously, our favorite thing, to topple the local government.
On top of that, is if you do see something, because I do try to look at it, but sometimes I get overwhelmed, I can't get to it. But if you do see something in the area of public safety or in the area of sustainability, and you could possibly consider forwarding. Rita did do that every once in a while.
Right.
When she saw something that may be relevant that I may have missed. I mean, both of you have a good finger on the pulse.
Yeah, absolutely. I will do so without hesitation. And I think a lot of our issues in Studio City cut across different committees. For example, the homeless issue fits in the homeless committee, it fits in public safety, and it could even fit here in some configurations. So I think that's great. And I also would like to try to shape the page to have a couple more links that are useful. Even someone who is as savvy as Barry and I, who go to the agendas regularly. It's helpful to have the main link. Even on my own computer, I have to get, it gets a little confusing. It's very easy. If you go one place and click through, and there they are. All the jurisdictions that I deal with are getting better at making stuff available than in the past. You still have to occasionally do a public record act request. So with that, I guess we can talk about the items. There are 2 items on the agenda. If people have any other comments before that, let me know. If not, I'll just move forward, which is, the first item is item number 6, which came to my attention at the end of the month the city council came forward with a proposal to put something on the November 6th ballot. It is another tax for cannabis, marijuana dispensary. Now it's called the special tax proposition, cannabis-related activities. This is a 1% tax on gross receipts. Now, previously, we just approved something called Proposition M some time ago. I don't have the exact date, but this provided a base level tax already. So this is an increase, but in order to accommodate that increase, they realized that everyone would go berserk. So what they did was they did a temporary ease off so that it's kind of a push if you're the kind of shopper who thinks, you're sort of buying something on a lease because it's not really going down or up, it's going up because in 2 years when the reduction on the early taxes is gone, it's going to be back up. So again, what we're dealing with is for products. I think they want to now include management companies that work with cannabis providers. They should be paying this tax. They want to do a $5 entry fee tax, which I was a little surprised by because it's kind of a big tax for any event, which of course raises questions of how do you define an event, and we can look at that and decide. But it's another kind of widespread tax. And what is the purpose of the tax? I think what they've said is that and one question that came up was, well, didn't we already do this? Why are we doing it again? And the answer is, well, we left sort of the social equity piece, which is, as some of you know, the city council and many people believe that the drug war did some damage to certain communities, and that we should find a way to restore in some way those communities, which I personally support. But how is a big detail, and who is a big detail, and I think they're articulating that a little bit in this motion. But I know that Mr. Harris Dawson's office is going to be taking a leading role in that work. And I called his office today to get a little feedback, but they were not. They were too busy today. And I called the marijuana office. They have a new office of cannabis. So I think that this is coming kind of quick. And the question is, does Studio City want to support it as we look through it, or do we want to not support it and say, you saw the two kind of points of view. One is take them at face value and say, let's do it. It's a good thing. They need the money for enforcement. They need the money for everything, including the social equity thing. Let's just do it and be good soldiers. Or alternatively, and I'm sure that there are people who are conflicted about this across the board. So I'll stop talking for a minute and see if other people have ideas or thoughts about this or questions, and we can look at it and decide what we think.
Oh, I have some thoughts about this. I'm so glad Craig's here.
Yeah.
I will not support any tax increase if we can't get enough money for North Hollywood Police to put 1 or 2 more cars on our streets to help with our spiking crime situation. This is, if there's going to be, it's not necessary to have any tax increase. Mm-hmm. All right, you have to use money wisely. But Government Affairs Committee should be very concerned about how the city has completely ignored our detailed and academic, scientific proposal about why we need more police cars. And that refers back to communities which have been, did you use the word ravaged by drug problems?
I didn't use that word, but maybe I did. But I know what you mean. Communities that have been disproportionately affected.
Okay.
I don't know how I said it.
They need better policing. Not more tax. There's no way to account for how these taxes are going to be used.
Right.
Okay, that's the main problem. I think as a city, this is the number one issue that everyone should be behind, is getting, and I don't mean to overlap the two committees, but I emailed you and I said they're very much interrelated, government affairs and public safety, and this is an example of that.
Well, I appreciate your point of view on that. Let me just read what they're proposing, because I think they include what you say, but I agree that it's different, because patrols through our neighborhoods and policing other kinds of crimes that are not related to marijuana, because you may or may not believe that marijuana is causing a lot of crime. To be honest, the places that I see in Studio City seem to be doing business, but I haven't noticed crime in our neighborhoods. I mean, feel free to speak up if you see it differently. But going back to what they're proposing, they're saying that this proposition is going to be for public improvements, child and youth programs, and city parks, libraries, and recreation centers near licensed cannabis businesses, public education and outreach, equity programs, expungement clinics, illegal enforcement, and other cannabis-related programming. Now, illegal enforcement means going after people. I think it means going after people who are selling marijuana without regulation. So it's a kind of crime, but it may not be the kind of crime that we're worried about in our neighborhoods. I mean, we're worried about all crime, obviously, but I think your point is you're not interested in attacks unless they're going to address what you're after, which is
This
more
is an
control.
infrastructure
Right.
problem with the police.
Yeah.
We are hearing that the problem is around these pot stores is, correct me if I'm wrong, that they're all cash businesses.
No,
You're saying, yeah,
I
No,
use,
they're not all
I use credit cards.
at these marijuana stores.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use a credit
Okay.
card. But I think to your
Where?
point, there is a
Here,
concern that
And the one out in Tarzan, sorry.
no, please.
Well, I'm curious about that because banks are being set up right now, special banks, because it's federally illegal. So you can get money out, but never in any of the ones I've been to can I use a credit card. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to tie themselves to the drug trade.
Because there was a little bit of, from what I heard from officers, there is a bit of concern around the cash businesses.
Mm-hmm.
There's that.
Well, Blumenfield wants a cashless system. He's been an advocate for that.
Right.
And
That's
so,
a good
but
idea.
I think we should get an answer. Are you absolutely sure? Because sometimes I get it wrong.
I've
I
gone to
thought you
Perennial,
could,
which is
yeah.
in the corner
Right.
of Ventura and
And you sure you didn't
Colfax.
pay cash?
No.
Perennial.
Yeah, me too.
I'll try that perennial, but anyone I've been to, no, not to say anything else, but I know that going through state government right now, which is something to ask for on Wednesday, is that they are trying to set up a state bank for
Yeah.
marijuana because
That's a good
people are
idea.
scared.
Right.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I think, on the ballot, in November. Not completely sure about that, but they're bringing that up.
Yeah. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you guys?
Join us.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. We're not interrupting. Yes. Mr.
Yeah,
Nieberg.
one of my concerns is that put too much tax on it, then the individual gangs and outside sellers will have a financial advantage, and people won't go to your licensed shop. They'll just buy it in the street corner. We were trying to avoid that because it causes all kinds of other problems, from just funding the gangs to gang wars to drive-by, whatever it is. If it's not cheaper in the licensed shop, people won't go there. You won't get the taxes anyway,
Right.
and you'll be funding the gang.
No,
That's where my concern.
that's an interesting point as well, that if you increase the cost to do it legally and through regulation, you're driving the black market.
Exactly.
In a way. Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Barry?
I almost think we should remain neutral, and I'll tell you why. Because if we do a motion one way or the other, they've already voted to send this to the ballot. There's going to be a second reading that our CIS could attach to, but the second reading could happen before they get that. And even if it does, when they've had a unanimous vote, they're not going to change it in a second reading.
You're talking about the city?
Yeah.
City council.
Right.
Okay.
This whole issue.
Yeah.
So this whole issue, they didn't have the guts to vote this tax in themselves. They're just voting to put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
So I say, let it be on the ballot and let the city, all of us vote yes or no. And actually, us sitting here tonight giving them a motion that we support it or not isn't going to change the fact that it's going to be on the ballot in 99.9% chances. They're not going to, they never change their vote when they reconsider.
Well, Victoria?
I agree with you in one regard. However, I think that it's important for the neighborhood council, which represents our constituents, our
Yeah.
residents, to actually come out against this tax and pretty much every other tax. I'm with you. But this one in particular, to the residents, to encourage them to vote against that option. Because this is loaded with hot words of kids and parks and all this stuff, all the special things that make people go, oh yeah, I want that. And that's how we got Prop 47.
And
that
also,
kind of talk. The other thing is, as far as I remember, which could be faulty, I'm sorry, but these pot stores cannot be located anywhere near any of these things. Why are
Right.
they talking about taxes to put these things near pot stores if it's illegal? It doesn't make, am I correct?
Well, why
You're
are they
correct.
bringing that up?
You are
That's a good
correct.
point.
and it doesn't say that the money's going to be earmarked to
No.
pot enforcement.
Is it
you
gonna
know?
go to the general fund?
Right.
And you know what happens if it goes
Yeah.
to the general fund?
Right.
Right.
It's already going to the general fund, I believe. I believe
Well,
they're trying to
that's-
make this specific, yeah. We
Well,
have
I
about
think
a,
that
Well, then
this
I
is what
object.
I spoke to a person in the field. I'll put it that way, and what she said was that the city council, if they were so inclined to do these things, they should have done that prior to putting 50% of what they're taking now into the general fund, which is what they've done. So this is a second thought, but it's a thought that's going to the November 6th ballot if it's not derailed or if they don't have second thoughts. Now, I just want to say one thing about that, if I may. But may I ask you if you would like to speak? You know, we're on item number 6 at the moment.
I'm just listening.
Okay, no problem. I just want to make sure that I'm
Thank
not
you.
skipping over you.
Yeah.
So in my efforts, I was curious about
Sign it.
what is the cost to take an idea like this and put it on the ballot. Now we know what the benefit is because they're going to raise something like $30 million is what
what?
the proposal is. To if this tax goes forward, they will ease off of the market $30 million. You know that's what it will amount to. So, but the investment to get it on a ballot is not insubstantial, and though it needs to be carefully parsed, a special election in general costs. And I asked the city clerk who runs that. A single district election. So, like if CD2 we had an election, we had to have a special election off cycle. Would be $1.5 million to 2.7 million. Now, obviously, for this, which will be a ballot inside of another election, it's not going to be such a big cost, but it's going to be a cost, and a significant cost. You know, hundreds of thousands of dollars because they have to print up all the stuff and it has to be added, and you know they charge for that. So that's another consideration, and also it's a consideration just to be a little aware of how this is a common play in city government, as I've learned, which is you take it to the voters who are big-hearted, who want to stand with their leaders, and so when the leaders say, let's do this, you know, they can get it approved sometimes. And we then, you know, need to be careful in deciding whether or not we're supporting it or not, I think. Because as many of you voiced, you know, it's a lot, and, you know, are they doing the job? So with that said, you know, I don't know if we feel comfortable going around the room. Barry, you made an interesting point, which is to stay neutral. That's certainly a point of view we can discuss, I guess. Why don't we? I mean, should we try to have a little vote about what people think?
Yeah.
You know, I guess there are two motions that are on the that we wrote up. You know, one is the first one. Motion B is that the neighborhood council cannot support the city's proposed special tax. That's one way to go, and another way to go is that we are prepared to support it. You know, wait, is that right? We cannot support this proposed.
A is in support, B is not in support.
correct.
Right. Okay. Good.
And
So.
I'm
B
not
is we don't
saying
support
I'm
it.
hell
I'm on
bent
your
on
side.
No,
being neutral.
you made the point.
Yeah.
You made the point. No, I
I'm just
got you.
saying,
Right,
bringing
it's a
it up
thought,
for
it's a thought.
discussion.
And
Yeah.
maybe we should pass that around. I can give you my feedback on that. I don't like to stay neutral if
Yeah,
there's a
I
point
agree.
of view, but I don't want to bully in anybody's point of view. You know, if somebody, you know, for example, if I'm the only person who thinks it's a great idea to do it, you know, then, and if you all feel it's not a great thing to do, then let's go with it's not a great thing to do. That's how I think it should work, and then we can make a recommendation, and the board would decide. So that said, I do not support this tax. So I guess I will take a.
I don't
vote.
support it.
Who support?
I do not
For people who
support
do
it.
not support the tax, raise your hand. So it looks to be. Is it unanimous? It's virtually unanimous. Okay. So,
For voting.
yeah, right.
For those of
yeah,
us
for those of
that
us,
can
for
vote.
those of us
Do not
who can-
support.
And I would just say we should change it from cannot support to
Yes,
opposes.
Good point. Very good point. This is my first time. And
That's
that was-
okay.
I confused myself.
Okay,
reading it as
opposes.
Yeah.
opposes the city proposed. Okay, so we can generate a CIS. If anybody, you know,
What does
I don't-
CIS stand for
It means
again?
Community Impact Statement.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that short
So
and
it'll get
sweet.
attached to
Yeah,
this
it'll get attached,
council motion.
and then they'll go, "What? How dare anybody, not so. By the way, this is if the board agrees with us.
Right.
Because, I'm not 100% sure that they will. They might,
If the
yes.
city council says that, give them my number.
Oh, Victoria, we will.
What Victoria said is a very salient point, and I've been thinking a lot about this. I think that Studio City should start thinking like Beverly Hills, okay? That we're very affluent conclave here, and City Hall ignores us because it's the Valley. And Victoria is right in that if we don't start complaining and loudly, then we're just the like the ugly stepchild. All right, and I think we have to show that this is an activist community protecting itself with activist people, and we when we don't like something, we will be very explicit about it and tell City Hall exactly how we feel.
Yeah.
Mr. Niederberg?
Yeah, it seems to me the city council members tend to defer to each other, particularly if something has a particular issue which is more important to a particular district. They'll just defer, whether it's the right idea or the wrong idea, they just go along, and that's not always such a good idea. Other than that, I really agree with Barry's point of view.
Okay. Well, so we will now, just in terms of the details, shall I jot up do we want to try to articulate it right now, or do we just want to build on what we have here, which is the Studio City Neighborhood Council opposes the city's proposed special proposition supported by our city council? I mean,
Right, then it'll
That's
go
pretty clear.
to the Studio City Neighborhood Council for a
right.
larger
and
vote, right?
And if they approve, if they vote in support of of saying we don't like this tax, then we can send a community impact statement to the file. And by the way, even if they don't, you or I or any of us individually have the right to send a statement of your own, which can, when you click on a statement, it's either from Studio City Neighborhood Council, which has more weight, or it's from, Marcia Newman, which has plenty of weight. So I'm just pointing out that I don't want to discourage anybody if we can't get it done, and let's remain agnostic and see if we can give it a fair shake. The question is, do we want to add any language? I guess I'll just...
I think you should add what
Yeah.
you have there.
More or less the whole motion.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
the whole thing. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so that's what this will be. This will be the. Got it. Okay, so I will generate that, and now we can move on to item number 7. So, item number 7 was brought to the council by a stakeholder, somebody we all know, and it was an email from the Ban Billboard Blight organization alerting this person, Rita, to the fact that AB 3168, which is a measure drafted by the Assembly member Rubio, who's down in, not Artesia, maybe Artesia, nearby. And her concern, I learned, was that they want, believe it or not, a billboard. Now, the reason why they want a billboard is because they make money. And they are not a place, I guess they wanted a billboard. But the California, or the Outdoor Advertising Act, has stated for a long time that if it's in a landscaped area, Barry, you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this at all, there's restrictions, okay, along highways. Now, this is only related, as far as I understand, to Caltrans properties. This is not a citywide ordinance on billboards. So even though we all love to get our pitchforks out when that happens, that's not this. What this is, and Barry, I don't know if you had a chance, but you would be the one who would know. The way Caltrans does it is because I said, well, how will this affect us? Is there going to be one right there, over on, because that's what we want to know. And the person who sent me a list, which I couldn't print out, but is a list of, the way they do it at Caltrans is every road mile is how they identify the locations. So we are road mile X to Y on the 170 and road mile X to Y on the 101, and I have not gotten a straight answer yet about whether or not our parcels are the kind that would be affected by this ordinance or this measure. Now, what is this measure is another good question. I mean, because it seemed like it was about what's a landscaped area, and in order to put a billboard, you have to have at least 10 feet on each side, or a total of 20 feet of landscaped area And what they're basically looking to do is have a waiver, so that one city can adjust itself, and get a waiver. And to avoid doing a waiver, they decided we'll just change the law. And so this is the first time they've changed the Outdoor Advertising Act. It's a very minor change, but it is a change, and that's why the hackles have gone up. On the penultimate page of your agenda has the actual language that they've changed. So I don't know if anybody has something to say about it. We can go around the room, or if people are Barry. Yes.
I just think it would totally open up a can of worms that we don't want to go there. The amount of cars on our state roads now has gotten there's so many more than 10, 20, 30 years ago that we don't want any more distractions than there already are. This is a safety issue for me for driving, and I just, and the billboard industry, even in the city of LA. The Plum Committee has like 3 different times over maybe 6 years, we've thought they've come to a conclusion and a final law that we weren't going to get all these. And then 6 months later, always like right before Thanksgiving or Christmas, when they think nobody's watching, said, oh, we're opening this up again because the lobbyists from the sign companies get to them. And then we're in like the 3rd or 4th cycle of that now, and still don't have really a final law within the city. So I'm totally opposed to this bill. And just one other thing, there was another billboard bill that went through the state legislature that went down in June, and now this one comes up. Right. So it's like they keep hitting us from all sides, Right.
Well, okay. Other comments?
There are way too many distractions already for drivers, and our drivers, the ones that have their heads up facing out and not on their phones, a lot of them, in my humble opinion, are not very good drivers. I do not want to see any more distractions. I would like to have all billboards gone personally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Barry, were you at the meeting when the representative for the anti-billboard private committee was here? When it was Rita's committee?
Yeah.
Were you there? Okay. My impression when that individual came, I forgot his name, was that he's pretty much powerless against that big billboard pack. It's a pack, okay?
Yeah.
And they control politicians. And there was apparently someone who ran who was financed by the billboard pack, and they got free advertising for their election on billboards.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It was Weezer, I believe.
I don't want to upset anybody, because even our fearless leader, Mr. Gregorian,
takes money.
Yeah, takes money from them. I mean, they do not know stone.
Okay, so
But that's legal, and
it's legal.
They all do.
Yeah,
It's legal, but let's talk about ethics, okay? We live in a world in which no one really acts on ethics. I'm totally against this. All right, I agree with you. Billboards are so frickin' ugly. However, they are here, okay? And it's a really big industry. And in areas like Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard, okay, maybe there's a place for that because that's part of the atmosphere. But on Ventura Boulevard or Laurel Canyon?
Well, okay, but so that's where I
The
think
sign
what we're
districts,
looking at now is something very narrow. But and we could talk about billboards again, and I think there's a lot of concern about them. But this is not that. This is Caltrans properties where people, and I learned something interesting today, that let's say there's 1,000 billboards on the highways in California. Okay, pick a number. That's the number. And if you want to get rid of one, which people do, someone else can acquire that. It's like a medallion for a taxi. Mm-hmm. There's a limit, and that's part of what the Outdoor Advertising Act did. So that's something to consider. So now, but still, as Studio City vigilant members of the committee, but of the community really, we want to be sure, and that's why I'm really trying to laser in on, and maybe later we can look at that road mile thing. I want to make sure, that this is not going to affect us immediately, that this is, but even if we are opposed to it, I'm concerned that it's going to pass, because I don't know if the assembly is the same as the city council where they all vote in unison, lockstep. But this was 72 yeses in the assembly, and it's going to a Senate hearing, and so people, I think, are understandably freaking out when they hear billboard. But when you look at what this is, they're going, this is not that much. They didn't even file, the guy who you're talking about, an opposition statement initially. Because I think they either didn't know or it didn't seem like a threat. And, the origin of it was explained that it's from a small community that wants to get a billboard. They said, let's not cherry pick for one group, let's change the law to make it more. So that said, another possibility on this is to do nothing, the Barry Johnson move, because I don't know that Studio City, who is unclear whether or not we're going to be impacted by it specifically, should be sending a letter to the state government telling them not to do something that they've been. But on the other hand,
We
I'm happy
should,
to do
though.
it.
We should.
Because we're
We have to
represented
show-
there.
Let's do it. If there's
What?
support.
Touch all the highways.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if there's support to do it, and we want to protect ourselves and say we're not on board with amending this act.
Do you know
We know you've got a
Nazarians?
lot of little things you'd like to snip, snip, snip. Maybe we could ask Mr. Hertzberg, because he'll be there early.
He's
tomorrow
gonna-
night.
he's gonna be at
Maybe
the-
we can work it into and see what he thinks.
Put
and
him
if
on
he
the
says,
spot.
And if he says, no, don't do it, or it's
What?
nothing, it's nothing.
Do you know
Don't do it.
Nazarian's position?
I don't know
Or-
either of their positions.
Because he tends
Oh,
to
he
be.
voted for it, I think.
Oh, God.
But I don't know if he
Yeah.
would in its final version,
And I don't
because
know-
he tends to be a little bit of an environmentalist,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
would
a lot
you
of
would think he would vote
environmentalists, yeah.
against this.
But there are different types of environmental awareness. There's, of course, the ecological, scientific, environment which we live, and there's also the aesthetic environment. Other famous world-class cities, Paris, sections of New York, London, they have restricted areas where the preservation of the city is intact, so people can really enjoy the history.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we need to do the same thing, and
You're
that's
right.
okay. And Studio City is an historic. We're in an historic area right here. Okay, CBS Studios. If you go by the parking lot, that's where Trigger was created.
Listen, Vineland is a scenic highway.
You
We
wouldn't
started
know it.
Universal. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
By the way, I just give one. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, another concern is that they might offer the extra surcharge to the city for the LED billboards so high that the city won't be able to turn it down. They'll say, okay, we'll give you an extra $1,000 a month just so I have our LED billboard somewhere. And I think the city's going to have a hard time turning that down if they get tempted, because it could be a lot of money for those LED billboards.
Right. But again, this is getting a permit from Caltrans,
I understand that.
and so we have to.
so what I'm proposing is
This isn't
this.
even about the LED bulb.
Yeah.
It's
Light
well.
bulbs, is it?
Only
It
insofar
will
as
be.
It will metastasize,
terrible.
believe me, okay?
Yeah.
But I think that we should make a statement as a community of zero tolerance.
Make a stronger statement.
And-
saying.
A stronger statement.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what people listen to, not like the what ifs and maybe
And say it to our
Russia.
assembly
Not
member
tonight,
and
What?
state
Right.
senator,
On
and I
fire tonight.
believe there's
Did
a
you
way.
hear what happened in
if
Russia?
our board votes
I mean, in
for
Helsinki?
this motion, that we can
If you don't
send the
speak out,
motion
everything goes to
via
hell.
email to every member of both houses, and we can certainly we all should also do it to Krikorian and his other 14 council members.
Yeah,
Because it's
ahead of
good
us.
that they know where we stand on a state
And
issue.
You know what? I would like to take a vote on this. Zero tolerance in Studio City.
Right.
For Bill,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I think we should blast it out to our constituency.
To our what?
Our constituency.
Yes.
Once it's board passed, which
Yeah, once it's
Yeah.
passed.
Sure. Okay.
This
Well,
is
I'm
what we're
hearing
doing.
opposition for the billboard ordinance, which is good. I just want to make one comment before we vote on that, which is that because somebody mentioned we should protect our communities, and we should protect what's special about Studio City, and I completely agree. And I think a lot of our fights across the spectrum are about that. And in a neighboring place out in Malibu, they had a big fight about home sharing, and thousands of people showed up. Not thousands, but hundreds to fight about,
You mean Airbnb?
Airbnb.
Okay.
We can have that conversation too, by the way. It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And communities have to figure it out, but we are part of a big city, so they decide. And it's a big, but in Malibu, it's a small enough place they talk. But what was ironic and I thought interesting was people talked about that in droves, but the meeting before, they did something that was very special and powerful, which was they spent sort of a lot of their money to buy up the land that makes their place special. They spent $42 million of the city's money buying an empty lot. And
The
buying
city?
it. The
The
city
city?
did it. The city
Oh, city
council,
Mal-
the crooked little councilman in Malibu, put themselves together, saved up this money, and blocked a big hotel or a big this or a big that. And I have to tell you, it was not, the evening was not about that, but for me, it was inspirational. I felt very proud of that group of council because they really, it takes a lot to do that. And I thought, that's the kind of thing that if we were in a perfect world, we would do that too. We would say, no, you can't take that space anymore. You can't put a stadium at Weddington. You can't do, but that said, we're in the real world, so we can go back to voting on killing the
There is
billboard
precedence.
projects.
When you drive to Boulder, I do drive to Boulder.
Colorado?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
As you're driving in, and the Flatirons are there, the mountains, the hills. Oh, it's so beautiful. And I said, oh my God, Donna, I want to live right there. And she says, you can't. I said, what do you mean I can't? She says, no one's allowed to live there.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi. No one's allowed to live there.
sorry,
You
Jen.
can't buy
Joining
there.
us.
The city took it over. The city took it, and they won't let anyone build on it because it's beautiful. So there's no reason we have to let this happen.
Right.
Could you go wider and go East Valley instead of just saying Studio City?
Well, what I'm thinking is
It's a
that
board motion, though.
C2.
because it's this neighborhood council.
Yeah, I think it has to come from the neighborhood council, so we can't speak on behalf of other neighborhood councils. But, yes, Richard.
Yeah, I want to say something happened about the same subject matter 3-4 years ago. There was a billboard session here with the billboard hotshots here, and of course we invited Mike Clausman, and he basically did an absolute for CBS: "Thou shalt not, you may not put a billboard in Studio City," and that's it. There wasn't any discussion.
And that was when CBS had CBS Outdoor Media under its wing. They've now divided. It's a separate company, but
couldn't have
yeah.
Clausman say
Out front.
just plain no,
I
no
think
billboards in
so.
Studio City.
Yeah.
I think it should be part of our, if there's a
So
charter
you
or
want to
something.
do a stronger, what I'm hearing is that there's support for a stronger motion to express negativity about
Yeah.
billboards, as opposed to commenting on this particular.
I think
In
we need to
addition
do
to-
it separately
We may
if
need
we're
to
going to do
again,
that.
right, in the
Yeah,
future,
in
right.
addition to.
In addition to.
It's like, don't come to us anymore with this because we have zero tolerance. Go put your billboards in, I don't know, Sylmar or something, but not here.
Junk up Hancock Park.
A lot of billboards are on private property, and this doesn't really solve the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Once again, this particular item that Rita
It's
submitted
Caltrans right away.
is Caltrans right of ways.
Right.
And do you know? Can we review in our minds what possible Caltrans right of ways there are in our area? I mean, because you're pretty
Along,
this is your area of expertise.
Griffith Park, the 134 and the 5, and there's
But that's
wider.
not our neighborhood, though.
No,
Right. I'm
no.
saying in Studio City.
Right in Studio City, most of the freeway's right of way on either side is pretty narrow. So
Could you take that issue up next, by the way?
What?
Yeah, that's a good issue.
The air. It's a big
but
problem.
I-
Sorry.
Welcome. How are you?
All right, good.
Good.
I just think we ought to chime in against this assembly bill for now. That the assembly and the
Okay.
state senate need to get the message, and really it doesn't matter. We have the right to chime in whether it's right in our backyard or not, because none of us stay right in Studio City 24/7. You get out and about on the roads, and we're all going to see this if it's allowed, even if it's out on the 210, a ways or something.
Yeah. I wanted to just share the one thing that the person from the lobbyist disclosure, they're lobbyists.
Which
But-
lobbyist? Pro?
There's the
BB?
pro lobbyists, and then there's
Yeah.
the ban billboard blight people. And the pro lobbyist said,
Who is the pro lobby?
well, it's an organization. I'm looking for her comment.
Do we know the name?
Yeah, we do. It's on the agenda. It's
Oh,
the.
it is. Okay.
But anyway, what her point was, she made a comment about. This was her point. She said that one point that may be helpful, that there are a lot of concerns that have been raised about the potential for digital billboards to replace static billboards. And this was their response. I just want to give them their fair response to that, which is, this bill does not significantly loosen rules regarding conversion of static billboards to digital billboards. That's a quote. This bill does not authorize such conversions. It only authorizes cities and counties to approve such modifications, and only on displays that comply with all provisions of the Highway Beautification Act. Now, that does not make me feel comfortable when I hear
It's
that.
doublespeak.
Yeah, it sounds like doublespeak.
Right.
Yeah,
So I mean,
it
you
is
know,
doublespeak.
that's the best that they could come up with.
And even if it was absolutely true, the regular non-digital billboards, I don't want them where they want to put these
Yeah.
either. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Right. And I don't know, you missed in the beginning, we were talking just about how this is, the way and I'll make it very brief, what's it called? The Outdoor Advertising Act works is that they've agreed to limit, this was a few years ago, the number of ones that can go on Caltrans property to is it 1,000 or maybe it's 1,500, but it can't change. If it does change, it means that one gives one up and the other takes it. And there's always a market for it because some people want it because these things can kick off a significant amount of revenue. I read $500,000 a year
Yeah.
in revenue.
Yeah.
So, a second-rate jurisdiction could certainly use that money. So, anyway, and I know Councilmember Krikorian has been, on all the spectrum of horrible things that there are, he has been a little open to this because, and I sort of agree, it's not the most pernicious of the things, although it's not a good thing, and I'm not advocating for billboards in Studio City. But if you had to pick your poison on some things, I would prefer that than taxing those of us in the community who are already being heavily taxed. I like the idea of sticking someplace where it's not a public safety hazard and is not, blocking people's views. The problem is we're out of those spaces. So
But it's
we're-
not just billboards, right? It's electronic billboards.
No, this is about.
It's in addition to this.
Yeah, this is about, actually, specifically, this is about revisions to the big act that covers both, but that covers landscaped areas. It's basically, and it's hard to explain because I'm not that good at it. It's not second nature to me, but basically, the government agreed that where it's landscaped, you can't put a billboard. And landscaped is defined as, it's coming back to me, we have a contract to clean it up, we paid for it, anything like that establishes that it's landscaped. Now, what they said is not an example that would count is, a bird drops a seed, a tree grows, and nobody's taking care of it, but there's a tree there. In that case, it doesn't count as landscape, so the company could knock it down and stick up a billboard. But again, I think we've agreed that people don't want a billboard, and people don't want to. So unless people want to, and I would love to hear from many of the people who just arrived, if there's any, further discussion about it or thoughts. I like the idea of bringing back a more hearty issue to discuss and maybe make a motion that,
And we probably would have the whole billboard thing within the city of LA. It's going to be back again,
Oh, for
probably
sure.
around
For
Thanksgiving,
sure.
like I was saying.
It's the NRA of Los Angeles.
So we should have something ready to go for that. Like you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, so then should we vote on whether or not to support or oppose AB 3168? The motion A would be that the council opposes it, which I think is, do I see a show of hands on that?
Voting members, right?
Voting members, but we like to hear from
So
everybody.
it's
Is that-
unanimous.
Unanimous, okay. And then, are there any people who have changed their mind in the last 10 seconds? No. Okay, so it's a unanimous vote against. To oppose. Okay. And that's what we'll do. Now, do we want to, you want to edit or add some of this language, or just give it a short description and say we are opposed?
You could add a little of what you have on the explanation.
Sure.
Well, I guess you didn't really do the equivalent of what you did in number 6, like a sentence after the motion.
No, I didn't really give the explanation as to why, but I think that we can do that now together if we want, which is something like, does anybody want to spit out I mean, I think that there's a very small appetite for advancing billboards in Studio City.
I like the word zero tolerance. The community, the city.
I'm not comfortable with zero tolerance. I'll just be honest, because
Okay.
it shuts down the possibility, like I
Because
said.
we're always going to have some.
Yeah, and also.
Well, expansion.
and
Yeah.
There might be,
I was going to
That's a
say
good one.
expansion.
Right, but there may even be some kind of clever signage that doesn't bother us as much and can help the city. So,
But
whereas
but here's my point.
Okay.
If we posit ourselves, if we position ourselves as a community that's pretty strict on how we want to look and how we want to behave, they'll go someplace else. Okay, that's one thing in Beverly Hills.
that we could almost hit one of the big companies with a tennis ball. It's like right over the.
Oh.
Literally, you know that they're on the
What is this?
Ventura Boulevard.
Who's that?
What's it called, Richard?
Like a Clear
One of
Channel?
the-
Or
yeah,
like a
not
secret-
Clear Channel, but like that. Another billboard company.
Oh, okay.
They're
Yeah.
right on our boulevard. I forget the name.
I'm very comfortable with the zero tolerance.
Or for expansion.
Or
if you
expansion.
want expansion.
Yeah.
So call it out.
Or you could talk about zero tolerance for expansion.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
I'm very concerned with arguments like Wrecking Park says, okay, in North Island Park, in Valley Plaza Park, basically, okay, this will give us $5 million extra a year to make the park better.
Right.
I'm afraid that some people will get weak because there's so much parkland that was developed because the freeway went through there. So it's ideal location for billboards, but ugly. It would make the park much less useful. So it's not just the drivers that are affected, the people who use the park will be affected.
And we could mention, increased distractions for drivers.
Do you need to give a reason?
I don't know. I'm just
I doubt it. I don't.
probably not.
No.
No, we could just say for many reasons.
Yeah.
Preservation
It's
of the
like,
visual
period.
integrity of our community.
Yeah.
Studio City is
Zero tolerance for billboard expansion.
opposed to AB 3168 and has a zero tolerance for
For
expansion
expansion.
of advertising in our community, or no?
In our
Or
Or,
billboard.
or
Yeah.
along our.
Billboard blight.
no, to preserve the visual integrity of our community.
To preserve
The visual integrity of our community.
visual integrity of our community. So, Studio City is opposed to AB 3168 and has a zero tolerance for expansion of advertising to preserve the visual integrity of our community. Do we want an expansion of billboard advertising? Is that what we want, or just of all kinds of advertising?
Bill, I think
Like
you could say
billboard.
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 Because this is what this is
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's leave it at Bill.
Billboard
Yeah.
advertising in order to preserve
In order to preserve.
the
Visual integrity.
visual integrity of our community.
Well,
Okay.
I want to make sure it's billboard because
Yeah,
I
it
want
is.
to make sure that people that say, no, these are public service billboards or some other non-profit, some other excuse.
Right.
So it's got to be billboards at all,
Yeah,
no matter what's on them.
Sure.
right.
So how would I squeeze that?
All.
Studio supposed AB and has
All.
a zero tolerance
Or
for
any kind of billboard.
all
All types.
All.
types
Yeah.
of billboard advertising,
Mm-hmm.
including those that are aimed at saving children.
No,
In
just
a park.
Because
No.
that's-
We don't have
those
those
are
here.
public
No.
service announcements.
no,
you know?
just leave it. It's all.
Yeah.
I mean, some people don't even
all
like the
types.
Amber Alert billboards.
Yeah,
They're
Right.
outrageous.
But
They're
you
they
know-
are. They are. Right.
Yeah.
They wanted
The
to
ones on the
start
highway?
using those signs for
I
advertising.
know they offered good
The
money.
ones on the
too.
highway?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're not
Wow.
blinking at
Right.
an Amber Alert,
Yeah.
it's just sitting there. They want to run
Everybody
advertising.
slows down.
But that
Oh,
takes
yeah, it's
that
terrible,
takes
the 101.
away from the
Oh, yeah.
real alert too. If
Yeah.
you start seeing those,
Yeah.
you may just ignore it. I don't want to see an ad, and then you're going to miss it when it's important to see it.
Also, the amber color is really bad. Very hard to look at.
I think if they need money that badly, they should figure out where to tighten that belt.
The city.
Yeah, well, this.
Yeah.
Like we do, if our income
Yeah.
gets to be less, we have to cut corners, we have to cut things out.
You're a
Marijuana
fiscal
tax.
conservative, yeah.
It just goes back to that. That's
For
where they're trying to
example,
find
right.
it again.
So, right.
And they got a lot of money right now, and they want to spend it.
Oh, well, I mean, you
It's
know,
not like it was 10 years ago.
No, but it's very disturbing. I've learned as I've studied the city and the county government that everything looks like a great idea in these propositions and these and the money really, the accountability piece is not great. So I'm hoping that we can help with that. Let me say as we wrap up, because I think we have we already voted on both items.
Yep.
And they both passed
Oh, you
unanimously.
did?
Opposition did, that is. So let's move forward to the final moment, which is any ideas for things to bring up in the future. I'm open to that, and I don't know protocol-wise if you want to just send an email or if you want to bring it up now, because I'm open to hearing from both stakeholders and the board or the committee, about things that we might want to chew on, and I have some ideas myself.
Yeah.
Mr. Rado.
When I interrupted earlier, the flight path has changed. I don't care
Really?
what anyone is saying.
It's true.
Wow.
And it's matching. It's coming directly over Colfax Meadows and then into the hills, and it's very loud. No one's saying get rid of Burbank Airport. We all love Burbank Airport.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
going there, but we're not getting the full story of why this noise increase. And it starts at 7 a.m.
I
and
always
it
know
goes-
when it's 7,
Well,
because it's the first
It's
one of
my
the day.
alarm.
7:05.
Yeah, 7:05.
Southwest
Yeah.
is out there, but it's not only the planes from Burbank. It's also the private
Yeah.
chartered jets that are now crisscrossing
Oh,
this
Van
way.
Nuys?
Yeah, I've
And I can tell you
also
every
the
night about
helicopters.
11:20, the
We know
news
helicopters
helicopters
They're
are
coming
coming
in.
back from the
Right.
Cahuenga Pass, through the
Right.
Cahuenga Pass,
Right.
and they
And right
either go to
over.
Van Nuys or
That's right.
Pacoima airports.
Right.
Right.
And that's increased.
Or there's an issue. Or there's a
Or they're hovering over
It's
us.
increased though.
Okay, I think this is a losing battle. This is FAA, and also they changed
Yes.
they changed flight patterns according to weather. My husband is an aviation.
Well, that's what Nazaria
fanatic.
is saying, because I asked him this the other day at the Colfax Meadows Fair,
Yeah.
and he's using the weather thing. He says on windy days, there's days
Yeah.
there's not a wind in the air.
Yeah, but when you
Winds
go up
aloft.
15,000 feet,
They do
it's-
reverse though. They
do
land
reverse.
over us on windy days.
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
an idea. Why
But
don't
they're actually
And
quieter when
there's
they're
an
landing.
activist community. Let me just say this: there's an activist community within studios, so
Yeah.
you can see it on Nextdoor,
Uh-huh.
who are
we at arms?
up in arms about it. So it might be good to engage them.
I mean, you can do, but
Federal.
okay,
When
it's federal.
we moved into our house, we live in the neighborhood behind the Sportsman's Lodge. We moved there in 1979. And my husband was a pilot, and we had a plane we flew out of Van Nuys. And I gotta tell you, Burbank Airport, there were many times I ran out of the house screaming because I thought a plane was landing on us.
Oh yeah.
Did it get better?
And I called,
Yeah,
it
I think it did,
eventually.
yeah.
I called Burbank Airport, and finally they had a big meeting and invited all of us in to talk. And they explained about the flight path and blah, blah, blah. And I will tell you that if there's a cloud cover, the noise is much greater.
That's true.
And that depending
I've
on
noticed that,
winds
yes.
aloft, that they may have to alter how they come and go. I have not been aware of so many planes flying directly over us lately. However, we get helicopters all day, all night, because I talked to the Channel 2 helicopter pilot, Mike
Stu
Case.
Mundell?
No, Mike Case, I think. And he said, "Oh, honey, you're under the flight path to the Cahuenga Pass.
Oh.
For helicopters.
They all
Yeah.
fly right over us because of the pass."
Well,
So-
would it be a waste of time to have somebody from Burbank Airport, from the community
Great.
affairs,
Yeah,
come out and
sounds
talk
But
to
the
us?
helicopters
Sounds good.
are in Whiteman. A lot of news helicopters in Whiteman.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
I'm more concerned
well,
about the flights because I've noticed that the jets are I mean, something seems to have come. It comes right over my area as well. I live in the hills.
I would like to know who the
didn't realize
heck it
this
is
is-
that
That's
flies out of Burbank at 4 in the morning in a
Private
big
jets.
noisy
Or
jet.
FedEx.
This is for
Right,
drones.
no,
FedEx-
didn't
I know
even
the
think about
FedEx
that tonight. This is for
flights.
drones, so you can't fly drones in certain spots. And it has every helicopter landing pad. It has every Burbank. It's got
Oh,
LAX.
wow.
Like where they are, and obviously where we are right there.
I actually.
We're surrounded. If you
Right.
want to see it, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Very scary.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, we lived in Santa Monica for years, and I know that the area around Santa Monica Airport, which is the largest private commercial airport in the country, they had to have several crashes.
Oh, they're getting ready to be shut down.
Yeah, but it's taken them 30 years.
Yeah.
But they had to have crashes.
I took flying lessons there.
Van Nuys is the largest for general aviation.
General?
General aviation, you know.
Now,
Plus-
what did happen from all of us bitching way back then was that
Where's
they
your arrow?
shortened the hours to
You're-
the
what
7
we
to
have.
10 thing,
And so where are we? What are we?
so
within?
that we weren't
Which
having
zone?
planes
Yeah.
all night long.
And most of them,
Can you tell?
it's voluntary, but most of them
Medium
adhere to that.
Medium.
Yeah, they do.
We've been lucky.
Yeah.
So, where
So
are
the
we,
other
Jeff?
thing is about it is annoying and but that airport provides a lot of jobs in our community here.
The Burbank Airport.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of
And
jobs.
an alternative to LAX.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So, I mean, it
You know,
is.
sometimes the issues that can be addressed have to do with the way how steeply they take over.
Yes, and we're
Which
hearing
is
that
is
too.
a money issue, you know, because it costs more to go up quickly than to go up gradually, and you know, so sometimes community pressure makes a difference. In every community where I've lived, this has become, there's always an undercurrent. So I think, you know, we can tune in and see what they say. Maybe they'll be happy to come address our concerns, or at least hear what we're saying.
Thank God there's
So
some,
I don't mind
somewhat
putting that
of
on
a
the
curfew,
queue.
or God knows.
That's 3 airports.
Also,
what do we refer to this as?
Van Nuys.
Noise.
Aviation noise
Traffic.
abatement.
Traffic, yeah.
Aviation noise abatement issues.
Very good.
Amazing.
one of the things also when it comes to things like Van Nuys, it's not all tiny planes. That's where Clay Lacey has his
Right.
terminal. Of course, he has more hours piloting a jet than anybody else that's ever lived.
Mm.
And it gets
Who
better.
is that?
Clay Lacey.
Clay Lacey,
I don't know
you
who
know,
that.
he's the largest tenant at the airport and has a lot of planes, a lot of big planes.
That's at Van Nuys Airport.
No. He's
No?
no. That's at Van Nuys Airport.
Right.
For example, on Top Gun, he outfitted the fighters to have the parachute lenses so you could do those videotaping, you know, plane to plane. So, but he owns a lot of really big planes, and they use Van Nuys Airport. He's maxed out.
Well,
you
I
know.
must see them over.
Well,
My
what happened is you don't
house.
see them taking off, but they have to loop to get over something. They normally they like to fly over freeway, you know.
Yeah.
134 is fine, and 170 sometimes, even though it's a hassle in Hollywood, you know. So he has big planes too. It's not just little tiny planes,
Right.
not little Cessnas.
What about Zeppelin advertising? Is it bothering anybody or no?
They
Really?
don't do that anymore,
Goodyear
do
plane?
they?
Rarely see that.
We see it out at the beach.
That
and it's
brings
very
Oh, at the
Hours,
beach, yeah. Yeah.
Trying to lighten the mood a little.
Yeah.
They're fairly
Very
It's
cranky.
okay.
quiet by
It's
comparison.
all right.
No, I'm kidding.
SCNC with the
Right.
Zeppelin.
Blimps don't make much noise.
Now, are there any other? That was a great suggestion, Craig, to go to dig into that area. Anything else?
Well, I would just like to see the GAC get more involved with our police initiative because we're all affected by
I would
it.
too.
It's JC, I'm sorry.
You know, I have a
Government
question.
Affairs
That's
Committee.
why you're here.
So can I just
You're
I was here for the weed.
Okay, what?
Yes,
Okay.
good. Richard and then
Yeah,
Victoria.
I have a question for Barry. Obviously, once a year they get all the pilots together and have a nice little thing for all the news organizations. You know, is this ever mentioned as far as you know? I mean, you're
What the noise? You know,
the noise. I mean, they meet every
they
year.
all look at it as
They
a
have a
right of
party.
news coverage. They're never going to think anything different. You know.
Yeah.
So they if they want to be over the scene, it's how they get to the scene.
I'll tell
Off
you.
the
I'll
run.
tell you one little secret you might not know.
What's that?
Channel 11 and channel 2 and 9 as one
Yes.
share helicopters. In the morning,
Keiko.
2 and 9 does not have one in the air, but 11 does.
Wow.
And they use the picture from 11. And if you notice, if you watch 2 in the morning, you will never hear the pilot talking. It'll be the anchors talking. The flip in the evening, 11 doesn't have a helicopter in the evening, but 2 and 9 do. So if you ever see a chopper shot on 11 at night, you'll never hear the pilot talking. The anchors will talk.
Okay,
So
good.
that's to save money. So
Yeah,
it's
I-
one less helicopter in the
That
air.
makes sense.
Yeah, but NBC's got 2.
I know, that
And
didn't help.
KTLA rents, what they have also else they have
Everyone
spare
else.
to rent all the time.
Yeah.
Victoria?
The other thing I learned was that, remember when the water main broke down on Coldwater? God,
Yeah.
We've been under construction ever since. How
That
many
was
years is this?
years. That's
3
like
years.
Coldwater nonstop under construction, one thing after another. But when I asked him about it, that Sunday morning after it broke, 9 in the morning, there was a helicopter over us. Okay, I'm at Woodbridge and Coldwater approximately. At 9 on a Sunday, it had been up there for an hour over us. And it didn't need to be there. There was nothing happening.
It was
And
probably 7
so-
because I think they're the only ones that fly on
This-
Sunday
This
mornings.
pilot told me, he said,
Needed a lot of
yeah,
fuel.
they stay too close to the ground. He says he'll go in and get that tight shot, and then he goes way up and does the zoom. And that is something we could pursue, is that they go higher and use the zoom.
Yeah, I have a that's a great idea. But another thing about helicopters in our community, which and touches on the public safety issue too. In case you haven't noticed, the local news, and I know you have noticed, every night waits for we got one, and then starts chasing a guy or woman in a car driving at 80 or 100 miles an hour. And, they can't resist because everybody routinely goes, ugh, and sort of notes it because that comes on the TV. Now, I don't think it's safe. I mean, I cannot imagine, given all of our technology, why we can't figure out a way to get them later. Like, don't chase them, outsmart them. I mean, and wouldn't this be a great use for a drone?
It's ratings.
Well, I understand that,
That's
but
it.
I mean,
Drones don't fly fast enough.
Probably someday.
But
Right.
law enforcement
It's a
has
dumb idea.
different ways of approaching it than they used to. They will pull back and not
Right.
chase as much as they used to.
Right.
At the same time, if you want to get a conviction, you want to have the KTLA or Channel 4, whatever, helicopter. It's so admissible it's beyond belief. I've done on the bench. I've seen a lot of these cases basically where somebody will actually do 1,000 violations, 750 violations,
Yeah.
and and as soon as I get the now there is a disc drive, but it used to be a tape, of the whole thing basically, and I asked the defendant or the lawyer basically, do you want to do one by one, or do you want to plead out? Because we have 1,000 violations right here by a third-party neutral source, because the network doesn't care one way or the other, and we have it all right here. Shall we? You want to go forward one by one, or do you want to basically plead out?
No. Okay, we're getting close, but sure. Any more comments?
Going back to the lack of cops thing. Okay, I can make you cry. We have a new chief of police, and the word is, nothing is gonna change.
But did you hear he's buying a house in Studio City?
It's a good rumor. I like
hope
that.
it's in my neighborhood.
No, I heard it from somebody who I believe knows.
I believe too.
Yeah.
So that's why we're going to tag him.
We heard that also.
He's a decent guy. Have you met the guy?
Oh,
No.
I would.
Have you met him?
Guys,
No.
He should come on by.
I think we should really.
But
I
But
don't have
that-
his email. If
That
anyone can
is
make that
something
move.
we can follow in this committee, and that,
I think he
the
should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
tax dollars, the valley has 40% of LA's population, and we probably get 20% of the tax dollars.
Yeah, that's
Where do I
good.
find that information? Because I'm thinking about you guys every time I go on social media and hit this guy up because he's extremely active. Where do I find that information?
Michael Moore.
Michael Moore?
Michael
And
Moore.
everybody, Gregorian and everybody else. This is something I'm going to bring up with you
their
guys on
emails?
Wednesday.
Or what do you want?
Oh, I just want to know where that information is. Where can I get that?
We hear these great stats.
Google,
Yeah.
You had all those stats.
'cause I tried
When
the
you
other
had to
day,
get
I
all the-
couldn't find
Google
that graphic.
San Fernando Valley city funding and
you
see if
send
you
it to
get
me?
anything. And you might have to put versus Central City or something.
Okay, I'll go through that.
So should we adjourn the meeting, and then we can continue to chat if you want on the way out? But I thought that this was a good first meeting, and I want to thank everybody for showing up. Mr. Do you have anything you want to add or comment?
Oh, I just wanted to come and listen to, I missed the marijuana thing
Yeah.
and the billboard.
Okay.
I got-
We can give you our disposition on them if you want.
So we went for a motion that opposes the marijuana tax, and
A motion that
Yeah.
opposes the billboard ordinance
Yeah.
revision. So
Yeah,
we're kind of in a negative mode, but it's with, respect and.
are we going to get them before the board?
Yeah, we're
in
going to
2
try. What
days?
we're going to
Okay.
do is we're going to share with the president. I'll type it up tonight or tomorrow morning, and then I will submit it to the president. I told him,
Oh, yeah.
and he said we could do a special meeting agenda that would put it on for Wednesday
okay.
because both of the items are just a few weeks away. So that would give us the opportunity to send these documents in time. So we'll see if it works. If he feels it's too crowded, it will go later, and we don't have to, decompensate over that.
So if you want to come to the meeting Wednesday night,
Yes, come
7
and feel
o'clock.
free to speak up. Or
7 o'clock?
Carpenter
Yeah.
Elementary.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's not here?
Do we know that
CBS.
before?
It's CBS.
CBS.
They weren't able to make.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought
They couldn't get the thing in time.
with Carpenter.
Too much red tape.
So that's the
With
big
Carpenter.
one?
Well, they wouldn't accept our credit card,
Yeah.
frankly.
Oh, okay.
I would typically-
Just
Okay.
Anyway, that
So
said,
here.
we adjourn the meeting.
Moving forward.
All in favor of an
They can
adjournment, say aye.
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 Okay, good.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.